Good evening. All right. So Friends and Family Day is coming up, and I'm super excited. Sounds like it'll be a great day with a lot of people and just in general, a lot of fun. But sometimes this might be the only time we actually go out, try to help people and bring them closer to God. So I know I struggle with this, and I don't always go out and help people or even help anybody at all to the best of my abilities and bring them closer to God. Well, I was watching this one video earlier, and it really struck me. It was a video showing how little kids treat the homeless compared to adults. In one scene, this little girl is given money to go buy some ice cream. We all know how big of a deal ice cream is to a little child. And instead of buying herself ice cream, she sees a homeless man across the street and gives the money to him. Now, are we able to humble ourselves as low as a young child? Well, if you guys don't mind turning your Bibles to James chapter 2, verse 14, this is where most of my talk tonight will come from. So I really like the example that James gives us in chapter 15 to 16. He says, "If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, be warmed and filled,' without giving them the things they need for the body, what good is that?" In all honesty, just saying, "Go in peace," isn't necessarily a bad thing. And a person might look at us and be like, "That's a Christian man." But then, if we give them the need for the physical body, they'll look at us and be like, "That's a true Christian man. That's a good Christian man." Now, in verse 17, James says, "Faith by itself, without works, is dead." Now, this is a very powerful verse because it's pretty much saying, just because we believe in Jesus, it means nothing if we don't do what he tells us to do. And in verse 26, as you guys can see, it says that he compares it to the body and the spirit. For as the body apart from the spirit is dead, so also faith apart from the works is dead. Now, a good example of this is the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10. Now, as you can see, what he first does before even helping the hurting man at all was show compassion. We should show compassion to everybody, no matter how poor, how rich they are, no matter religion or race. We should be able to show compassion to anybody. Now, what he does is, he goes, as you can see in verse 34, it says, he went to him and bound up his wounds. He went immediately to the guy. It doesn't say he went grudgingly. It didn't say he went regretful about going to help him. He just goes and helps him. And also, in that same verse, he says, then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn. He set him on his own animal. In a physical sense, he's putting him at a higher position than himself. Say you see a king walking down the street and you're riding a horse. More than likely, you are to give up your horse to the king and let him ride it. In this same sense, he's putting the hurting man at a higher position than himself. And it also says that he brought him to an inn. He immediately goes to the inn. He doesn't do things according to his own schedule. He doesn't do things that he needs to do or has to do, or does anything according to his convenience, but he does it to the hurting man's convenience and bring him straight to the inn. Also in verse 35, it says, "And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, 'Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay.'" In this verse, it shows that he's not limiting himself to the amount of money. He is willing to pay as much as it needs, as much as it is required to help the man. He's not limiting himself, saying, here's his 2 denarii, and that's it. Anything more, make the man pay it. No, he's willing to give as much as possible, as much as he needs. Now, in verse 37, Jesus tells us, "You go and do likewise." It's not just James telling us that faith without works is dead. Jesus himself is telling us to go and do likewise. Now, we may go and do good deeds, but it's not really going to matter if we don't ourselves change. Works doesn't only mean the way we act to other people, even though that is part of it. Works also means the way we live our own lives. In Galatians chapter 5, verse 22, we see the fruit of the Spirit. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. This is the way that we should live our lives, the way we should live our lives according to God. But now, also, on the complete opposite end of that spectrum, in verse 19, it says, "Now the works of the flesh are evident: sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and things like these." Now this is something that's something we can also do, some way that we can also live our lives. Not the way that we should, though. Ultimately, everything really depends on us. Just because everything depends on us. Especially if we want to help someone spiritually, it starts with us. We really can't go out and help someone if we don't first help ourselves. Take the Pharisees, for example. They say that they helped other people, they helped the Jews, but ultimately they never really helped themselves. They are still greedy. They still have all of these things that Paul writes about the works of the flesh, and they don't truly have the fruit of the Spirit. So what good is it to help other people if we don't first help ourselves? Now that's an important point. So ultimately, we need to be able to help other people no matter the cost, no matter how convenient it is, but also, just because we help other people, we should also be able to help ourselves. Now, if you struggle with this and need the prayers of the church, or you need the prayers of the church for any reason at all, or you realize that this is the time to take your next step in your Christian walk and get baptized, please come forward as together we stand and sing.